right, good day to you. My name is Fred Oakman, and as always with me is Jake Peters, Mr. Jake Peters, rather. And we are PS This Is Awesome, a PlayStation podcast, and this is episode 185. This is a show where we share our feelings about the current state of PlayStation. But before we get on the show, I'd like to invite you all to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, youtube.com/PSThisIsAwesome, and visit us on Twitter at PSThisIsAwesome, and Tumblr, psthisisawesome.tumblr.com. If you want to make fun of our trophy list on the PSN, you can find me at anchorless_81 and Mr. Jake Peters at JakeSaw01. And as always, you can write the show at psthisisawesome@gmail.com, and most importantly, don't forget to share the show with your friends, and be sure to leave comments and rate the podcast as you see fit. And as a quick reminder to the new listeners, and maybe even the older ones who haven't checked it out yet, this is a video podcast now as well, and you can watch the show if you prefer on our YouTube channel. We have been shooting to put the podcast out on Mondays, and we haven't done a show in quite a while, but to be fair, we've told you that our schedule is a little weird in the summertime, so we have less available time to do this show, and of course, you guys know it's free, and there's no advertising, and we're not really making any money on the show at all. So it is a labor of love. So you get what you pay for, which is nothing, meaning you're not paying for anything. So you're going to get the podcast that we are putting out, which I think is a good podcast, but we're not as consistent as we were during the really tight quarantine during COVID, when Jake and I had a lot of extra free time. We were holed up in our houses. But we are going to keep the show going, so that's good news. And with that out of the way, Jake, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Just doing a lot of crap around the house, trying to figure out some vehicle issues.
Oh, that sucks. No.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know. I mean, it's not like it's anything really crazy. It's just got to get an inspection done, and so I'm trying to figure out why a tail light isn't working, pretty much.
Yeah, sometimes those lights are really hard to put in. Like I know on my, I drive a Yaris, and those headlights are really tough to get in, because you got to pop the hood, and you got to squeeze your hand down in there, and then you're not, those halogen bulbs, you're not really supposed to be touching them. And I don't understand that, but I mean, I know I've touched every single headlight I put in, and they work just fine. So unless it's like a health hazard to me to touch them, I don't know why that warning's really on there. I guess they just want you to be safe.
Because the oils on your skin and your fingerprints will burn into the glass.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's why they tell you not to do that.
They
tell you to wipe it off before you stick it in.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Well, hey, man, we had a gig last night, and I had a good time. I'm kind of tired. My voice is a little wrecked because I played on Thursday also. And then it's already Sunday, recording this on Sunday, August 1st, I believe. And we're already into August, which is kind of crazy if you really ask me. I think it's kind of wild that the summer's going so fast. You know, I'm already pulling some yields out of my garden. I've got some fridge pickles in my refrigerator. So it's weird. The summer has really kind of pushed past us. And you and I only ever went on one bike ride so far. So maybe we can get another one in before it gets nasty out. But hey, man, so here's the deal. Usually at the beginning of the show, we talk about games we're playing. And I still haven't beaten Ratchet and Clank, A Rift Apart. And I am kind of ashamed of that, but I have an issue in the house where Charlie, my dog, it freaks out anytime he sees Ratchet on the screen. So it's kind of counterintuitive for an enjoyable playing experience for me, because he'll just jump and jump and bark and jump and bark. So the game I have to pull out when he's in the other room, or if he's sleeping, and he's kind of built up a interest in the television, so he always watches the television almost like it's a window. And he's looking for things to bark at, so it's become quite an issue. But anyways, I did get some more of that in today, and I'll talk with you briefly about it here in a minute. But I am still playing MLB The Show, and I don't know the last time I filled you in, Jake, on this. My character in Road to the Show is playing for the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, which is the Phillies ball club affiliate team. And recently, I got an invite to play some spring training games with the Phillies, but I haven't been called up yet. Now, one thing that really pissed me off is I've played 5 or 6 seasons now with my guy, and he's a pitcher center fielder, and I was throwing a no-hitter through the 8th inning. A no-hitter. No one got on base. No hits. It's very difficult to do. And the manager pulled me before I could finish the 9th inning, before I could even try to get my complete game. But then when I made it to the locker room, the coach was like, man, what you did was really an accomplishment. Like, not a lot of pitchers can say they've pitched a no-hitter. But I was like, yeah, but I didn't play a full 9 innings, so I didn't really pitch one. It must be some sort of game glitch. But, man, I was pissed off when they pulled me. It was like Fred Oakman is being replaced by, Rafael Volaswama or something like that. And I'm like, what? I'm throwing a no-hitter. Why would you yank me? Granted, like you work on your stats, so my durability and my endurance for my pitcher, the meter was pretty depleted. So, had I done more training in the training room, maybe wouldn't have got pulled. But I mean, if you're throwing a no-hitter and you're still doing good regardless of what your durability is, I mean, why would they yanked me? I was so frustrated. So I'm leaving the Philly ball club as soon as I can because that manager's a dickhead. Like, he's, I'm not getting called up, and I'm pitching less than a 1 ERA. My batting average is the highest on the team, and I'm leading the team in doubles and RBIs, and I'm still just playing for the fucking the Iron Pigs. And it's like, what do you have to do? What do you have to do to get called up? Like, it's almost become a fixation of mine now. Where like I don't even want to play any other games till I make it to the big leagues, and it's so irritating. It's so frustrating. But anyways, that's what I've been doing with video games. And I told you right before we started recording, I was playing Ratchet and Clank a little bit, and then I got real excited thinking about fall coming on, and then the new Resident Evil game that I haven't even touched yet or purchased. And I think that's gonna be the thing I'm gonna do in the fall time. So the hype has died down a little bit. About Resident Evil and stuff, and that game's out, and I bet you we can find probably a discount in the fall time on that. But that aside, man, I don't really have my sights on anything. I'm going to finish Ratchet. Without spoiling much, I just played the level, I don't even know if you'll remember at this point, where you get down, you take an elevator down into kind of like a water area. And he's like, thank God my O2 sensor is still working. And you go through, and there's an animal or a couple monsters that are provide electricity, and that's all I'm gonna say. That's where I'm at. So I feel like I'm getting really close to the end of this game, but I might not even be close because I went to the next planet, and then it made me play as Rivet, and then Rivet's like, well, it looks like we're getting pretty close to the end of our journey, aren't we, Clank? Because I think we have everything now to make the Dimensionator or whatever you're trying to get. I think I have all the parts now. So I don't know how much further.
You're probably, I want to say, probably 60 or 70% of the way through the game.
Okay, cool. Good.
Because there's a bunch of shit that happens after you think you've got everything and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's not a super long game.
Yeah, it got a little bit of grief because of that, I think. Some people were disappointed, but I'm enjoying it, what I've played of it. I mean, it just sucks I spent so much time away from it that I didn't know the controls as well, and the combat's kind of all over the place with the different weapons and what they do and stuff, so you kind of have to remember that stuff a little bit to be effective, but I'm back on it. I'm back in the groove. It took a level for me to get back where I needed to be. But what are you playing? Are you playing anything?
Oh, after I apply, it's been so long since we've had a podcast. I'm trying to remember everything that I've done.
3 weeks.
So after I platinumed Ratchet and Clank, let's see, what did I do after that? I think, trying to remember if I wanted to, trying to see if I can pull up my
trophy list.
Oh my God, I don't even fucking know how to fix this.
Uh-oh.
It's just saying that like the profile is private or some crap.
Yeah,
like
I think
that.
mine was doing that too one time. It must have something to do with us playing on PS5s now. It might not be able to pull it. which is interesting.
Either that or maybe you have to create an account and specifically say that it's not private now. I don't know. That's weird. Anyway, so what I have been playing, so I played a little bit of Metro. Oh, that's where I left off. So I was playing Metro, not really grabbing me all that much. So I was looking at my trophies for Returnal.
Yeah.
And when I was looking, because I was like, oh, I was just curious, like how far I was off the platinum because I beat it or whatever. And I realized I didn't actually get the final ending in the game. So I went back to Returnal, and I played Returnal for about a week or so and basically just grinded out this third act ending so that I could get it wasn't necessarily to get the trophy so much as to just make sure that I actually like got all the story content.
Yeah.
Because I had missed one of the final like sequences where you go into the old house and like the final game cinematic and all that.
Yep.
So I had to go back and basically find this special artifact on all 6 of the worlds. And then once I had them all, I had to go back to the house, and then you get like this. So for people who are playing Returnal and you don't know this, after you beat the game, it unlocks the ability for you to find these sun fragments. And there's one in each of the 6 biomes. And once you find them all, you go back to the house on the 4th biome, and you will be treated with another house sequence that's new. And at the end of it, you get a set of car keys.
Jeez.
And then after you have that, you have to beat the game again. And then after you beat the game again, you...
Oh, God.
This shouldn't really be too much of a spoiler, but there's a car that you come across.
All right.
And you have to make sure you go up to the car and trigger like this final cinematic. But that's how you get like the end of Act 3
What would you
or whatever.
do without the internet, right? Like back in the day, like most of these new games, right? If the internet didn't exist and it was like smash cut back to early 90s or late 80s, and developers were making games like this where you had to do this extra bullshit to get a real ending. Dude, as kids, we would have never seen the real endings of any of these games. You know what I mean? Like they're making it too complicated, right? There should just be an ending. You shouldn't have to go play the game another time. I guess if it serves the story, maybe, but it just sounds so weird.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense just because of the what do I want to say? Like the nature of the game is very explorative, and like, you know, the story is there for you to kind of dig out of the gameplay. Like the gameplay is really what's important about it. So it kind of suits the story or suits this particular game a little bit. But I would agree that it can be quite irritating when like you don't know that you haven't beat the game yet.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, how do you know?
They call it like there's like a secret ending. I guess by looking at the trophies. I don't know. I mean, and it might even be, I can't even remember, but it could even be that the trophy was hidden and I had to expose it to know that I had missed a what do you want to call it? I'd missed an ending.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing was I went back and I did that. And so after I did that, I was listening to a podcast recently with the creator of Diablo.
Yeah.
Because I'm excited about the Diablo 2 reissue that's coming out, remaster or whatever you want to call it. So I was listening to that and it got me really interested in Diablo again. So I booted up Diablo 3 because I had never, as much as I love that game, I platinumed it. I'd never leveled up Necromancer. So because it was an expansion character and wasn't required for the platinum. So what I did was I started a Necromancer character and just kind of went balls out with that for a week or so. really, really enjoy that game a lot. I the thing about that game is that like once you get so far, it almost feels like cheating because you can like immediately level a character to max level pretty much once you get like all the once you get so far, because basically after you hit level 70, then you gain these things called Paragon levels, and Paragon levels allow you to like increase your base stats of your character. Things like, your intelligence or like your critical hit chance or like your movement speed or like all this kind of stuff. And Paragon is shared across all characters. So you create a new character, that character is level 1, but if you've got like 150 Paragon points like I have,
boost them.
You can immediately just increase all their base stats, which allows you to immediately play the game on a harder difficulty, which allows you to level way quicker. So what I ended up doing was I think the first few times I played through the game with the first few characters, I think like when I beat Diablo, I think I was only like level 40 something by the time I beat Diablo. And with this most recent playthrough with my Necromancer, I hit level 70 halfway through the second act.
Wow.
Of 5. So because I'm able to play on I'm playing on Torment 3, which is like, I think you get like 600% XP and you get like all this crazy shit. So extra gold find, item find, all this stuff, more legendaries, all this crap. So, but it's fun. I mean, it's kind of fun playing it that way, but it's not, to me, I enjoy the character building and I enjoy the leveling I don't care about the end game stuff so much. Right. So I kind of don't like rushing all of that. But at the same time, it's kind of cool that you could just come in and immediatate start owning. Like, it's
probably hard not to, right? If you have the option, it's probably hard to hold back.
Well, the guys that play it for real, they don't play the campaign once they get to that point. They play adventure mode, which is like essentially like it's all the maps of all the 5 acts, but in those maps, you're just doing like random quests and jobs and tasks, and they have these things called rifts, which are like these little dungeons you can do, and you do all this shit and you level, like it's all about leveling up, and it's like seasonal, so you can get ranked and all this kind of crap. Yeah. So, it's mostly end game stuff. But the most recent thing I started playing, and it's not super relevant to this podcast, so I guess I don't want to talk about it I shouldn't go into too much, but I've been playing The Ascent on Xbox, which is fucking awesome. I think it's going to come to PlayStation eventually, but I feel kind of bad that you can't play it because it's like, did you like Dead Nation?
Yeah, that game was good.
So imagine Dead Nation. So it's like a single player twin stick shooter with like a story, right?
Yeah.
But imagine it's like, but it's all cyberpunk. It's a full on like hardcore RPG with like dialogue trees and like full character customization and leveling and like all this crazy stuff, huge open worlds that you get to explore. But it's just that isometric view with the twin stick shooting mechanic. Mm-hmm. It is so good. And it's one of those things where it's like off the back of the terrible launch of Cyberpunk 2077 to pick this game up, which is also Cyberpunk. It's obviously a different game style, but it's also a Cyberpunk themed RPG that is just executed way better. Just in terms of, I guess that's maybe the wrong way to say it. It runs great. Like there's no issues with it. Like it just works. There's nobody complaining about it. And honestly, the atmosphere is so compelling. Like I don't know that it's very weird. You walk through and you imagine a lot of these isometric twin stick shooters like Dead Nation and stuff. You're walking around, the worlds are very,
I don't want to say like generic, but they're like stagnant. There's not a lot going on. You know, like it almost reminds you of like Diablo 2. Everything was kind of painted in place. So you're just kind of walking through that.
Yeah.
Whereas like in this, everything you can tell that if they were to just drop your perspective to first person, everything would be animated and legit and modeled just like Cyberpunk.
That's cool.
They've done everything. So like when you're walking around, you see all this shit in the foreground and the background.
So it feels
and
like a living,
kind of
breathing world. Yeah.
It's so crazy and it's super dense. Like there'll be like, you know, dozens and dozens of NPC characters on the screen, like because it's, you know, the bowels of this cyberpunk city, you know, and they're all just like chatting about just this horrible shit that's happening and like. It's now it is a little bit different from Cyberpunk CD Projekt Red's game because there's like aliens and shit in it. So clearly it's like a future Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Well, I mean Cyberpunk is technically future, but like more of a sci-fi-ish like.
It's kind of XCOM-y as far as like the enemies.
I haven't faced any real like aliens yet. Like I'm probably only maybe 2.5 hours into the game. So I've done like 3 missions or whatever. Honestly, the hardest part for me is the twin stick shooting is difficult.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I've never been very good at. Like I got really good at Resogun, but it's much more like focused. You're not like swinging a reticle around you and stuff. And there's some interesting mechanics to it where like you can duck behind things. But if you want to shoot, there's this mechanic where you hold down the left trigger and they call it aiming high. So if you are, because in a first person view, like if guy is standing up a staircase from you, you can just aim up and shoot them. Well, in this kind of twin stick world, you can't do that. So they have this thing where you just hold this button down and he aims high so that he can shoot anything that's on an elevated platform. We have to do the same thing if you're ducking behind cover. So it adds this like, I'm just not good at it yet. Like I'm trying to get good at it, but it seems really, really interesting. So
cool.
I hope that it's another game like, what was the last one I was talking up? Oh, Katana Zero, which Katana Zero is for sure coming to PS5 or PS4, but I don't know. They haven't announced anything for the Ascent, but I think that there's a lot of rumblings that it might be coming to PS5. It might take a year, but
we'll get it eventually.
I'm really enjoying it. So
cool.
Yeah,
cool,
that's
man.
where I'm at.
Well, I'm glad you're getting some gaming in. You know, I have not been doing a whole lot of that. I've been busy. One of my land's writing our new 3rd record, and we finally started getting the practicings underway. As you know, The Flood, we're going to do a record, and then we got shows on the weekends, and then I'm even playing some weekdays, back to work. They have me working in the office now full-time, so I'm no longer teleworking, so that takes a chunk out of your day. Even though I work right down the street, it's just the extra things are in place now where I feel like my time is more limited. So not a lot of gaming, but I hope to beat Ratchet maybe this week. Let's get into some news here, Jake. Sean Layton, the former head honcho at Sony, recently chimed in with his opinion of the direction the gaming industry is going. And Push Square indicates that he recently had an interview with GameIndustry.biz where he shared his feelings. And I quote, "Consolidation is the enemy of diversity in some ways. It takes a lot of playing pieces off the table as they grow into these larger conglomerates. And again, we end up with this problem with diversity. Music, on a revenue basis, is probably 1/5 of the game space. But their cultural impact is 100 times what gaming is. Right now, we are narrowing ourselves down into genres and sequels in certain types of games. Favorites like my own, like Parappa and Vib Ribbon, those things don't seem to get a chance to come out on stage. That's bad for the industry and for fans. Over time, that leads to a crumbling of the games industry if we just keep talking to the same people and telling the same stories in the same way." And I think it's kind of neat that when these guys come out of like their positions, they kind of open up about their real opinions and how they really feel things are going. Or maybe he left because he saw some writings on the wall. Maybe this was his opinion of it. But Jake, being in the music space, man, it's almost like the flooded market. You know what I mean? Like, it's so hard to get noticed if you're the underdog. And how does the underdog become noticed? I mean, you could be an underdog and have a fantastic indie game, but never get the attention it deserves, just because it's just so overflowed, you know, with a lot of the same old stuff. And it seems like that's kind of what Sean's saying here, and how it's affecting the gaming industry now. He said games like Parappa the Rapper and VidRibbon, those things don't seem to get a chance to come out on stage. And that's bad for the industry and for fans. So it's like they're putting the focus towards, you know, like kind of like, you know, we always used to give the movies in Hollywood such a hard time because no one had an original idea, right? It's like, oh, okay, cool. You're doing Jumanji again. Awesome. Oh, okay. You're doing a new Fast and Furious movie. Okay, cool. Oh, you're going to remake Ghostbusters. Awesome. Oh, you know, I could just keep going on and on and on. And that's what happens. And it's like we're starting to see this in video games a little bit, and it's a little scary. You know, we're getting sequels to the games that we love, sure, but we're not seeing a lot of really awesome new IP coming out. And, you know, whether it be indie games, although the game you just shared with us, The Ascent, that sounds pretty cool. But again, you know, that's on Xbox. And the other game that you came up with, that's an Xbox game. And it's like, man, I would love to see more of this stuff. And when Hades came out, that wasn't available to us on PlayStation. And it seems like Sony's really shifted their focus on these major games, you know, and having these AAA huge titles. And it's kind of weird because I do miss the occasional indie game. Like, I really loved Cyber Ninja. I thought that game was fantastic. But what's your take on this? Do you have any opinions?
I think that the consolidation, or the what he's talking about as far as like the sequels and all that stuff, it's a big problem, I think, for Sony's first party.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's necessarily a problem industry-wide. So what I mean by that is, like, in the independent space, I think there's a lot of stuff being made. Yeah, you're going to have guys trying to jump on the bandwagon for stuff like Battle Royale and all this kind of crap. But you're also getting really interesting indie games like the game I just mentioned, that Xbox is doing. Now, I will say that Xbox that's one of the places where they have an advantage on Sony. Now, they haven't brought hardly any games out yet, but they just bought all these studios, and now they have a number of just different types of games that are coming out, you know, all over the place.
Yeah.
But Sony, you know, everything they have is a third-person action game. Literally everything.
Yeah, we talked about that.
So
yeah, I mean, let's name a couple real quick, like Ratchet and Clank, right? The Last of Us, Uncharted, Horizon, God of War. There's 5 right there, and those are all
Ghost of Tsushima.
All
of them. Literally all of them.
They're
are
all
open world
third-person action games. Narrative driven.
You know, you could say that Ratchet and Clank is a little bit more linear, blah blah. It doesn't matter, right? They're all third person action games.
Every single one.
They vary a little bit within there, but
with the exception maybe some of
shooter.
They're driving games, right? Don't they still do Gran Turismo? Isn't that exclusive?
They have Gran Turismo, right, which comes out once every 3 or 4 years. So,
and they had MLB The Show, but they don't have it anymore.
They do.
Well, I guess you're right. Yeah, but they're sharing it.
It's not exclusive anymore,
yeah,
right?
It's a sports game, sure.
So,
they get a sports game.
But they don't, you know, you're getting another, like, I think the biggest indicator of what he's talking about is the fact that we're getting a third iteration of the first Last of Us game that only came out like 8 years ago.
Yeah, they're
so
doing a
it's
remake.
not like this game has been out for 25 years or 30 years, and we're getting like this is like the third time this game is being or the second time.
Well, we had the original, and then we got the remaster, right? The remastered version for PS4.
Right.
And now we're getting the remake for PS5.
Now they're doing a remake of it,
which is going to have extra stuff maybe, but who cares?
And they're doing a TV show and like all this shit. So it's like they're just doubling down on the same IP, and that's, to me, that's how you kill a franchise as special as The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Like, I personally think it was a pretty huge gamble for them to even do a second one.
Right.
So
and they did well with it. They did well, but I mean,
and they did, yeah. They did a good job with
more.
the second Last of Us.
We don't need more.
But you know, there's almost zero doubt in my mind that there's going to be a third one.
I mean, I'll do
literally,
yeah. I'm going to get the remaster or the remake. I'm going to get it because there's going to be new scenes and it's going to be really pretty and run super awesome on the PS5, I'm sure. And I'll probably get number 3, and then I'll get Factions also. It's Naughty Dog. They make great fucking games, and they're going to be good. You just know what you're getting. And, like, they did this with Uncharted. They had Uncharted 1, Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3. We had the Uncharted Golden Abyss on the Vita. Then we had Lost Legacy, and then we had the... Maybe that's all we had. I think we had... So they tried to do...
We had 4, then we had Lost Legacy.
They tried to do a card game, too, on the Vita.
Yeah, they had the card game. They had the Nathan Drake collection.
And it was one thing after the next and one thing after the next. And Sony probably made Naughty Dog do all that shit. And, like, those games are good. But they essentially were the same game over and over and over. Now, that doesn't take away from how awesome they are. But it...
Well, I would say that Uncharted 3, which was the last one that Sony or that Naughty Dog, like, I think decided to do themselves, right, is arguably the best Uncharted game.
It is really good, yeah.
Uncharted 4 is good. Don't get me wrong. It's still really good. It's just not as good as the other ones. And, they made, I just don't know that people really liked the direction that they went. People really like Lost Legacy. I didn't like Lost Legacy, but
I liked it.
In my opinion, Lost Legacy is the worst of the Uncharted games that I've played. It's still good, but like, I played Golden Abyss. I didn't beat Golden Abyss, so I can't really comment on that.
It was fine. Naughty Dog didn't do it, but it was fine.
Yeah, so, but it's like, they're making another God of War, which, of course,
Ghost of Tsushima
they're making another Ghost of Tsushima.
And they're doing a remaster of Ghost of Tsushima, right? We're getting this extra...
Well, they're just doing a
director's edition,
PS5 native port of it. I mean, I don't know that I'd call it a remaster.
Well, they're giving us more content, right?
Yeah, and then, they're clearly doing a Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, we had Spider-Man Miles Morales. They're going to be doing a Spider-Man 2.
And even, like, with Insomniac, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, I love Rivet and Kit as characters.
Yeah.
But I can almost guarantee you that part of the design decision for that was so that they can make a spin-off series.
Oh, I'm sure.
With Rivet.
Yeah.
So, now they can double up the amount of fucking Ratchet we get.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't know. That could be completely off base, but it's going to probably happen. So
it'll be riveting.
I mean, like I said, I guess I'm getting a little in the weeds here, but I think that, really it's a big problem for Sony. And that's probably why Sean Layton is commenting on it, is because he was the head at Sony for a while. But I don't know if it's as big of a problem with the independent space so much as it is with the large publishers.
And dude, and honestly, if I'm being completely transparent, it almost sounds like we're complaining that we're getting all these games. I think all these games we talked about, they're going to be great fucking fantastic games. No question asked. But like, it'd be nice to have a little variety. Give us an RPG. Give us something. Give us something different. Give us something a little different to sink our teeth into. And I don't think they're willing to put the money into it right now. And what studio would develop it? Because they have all these knockouts with all these studios that are already with these IPs. So like, what are they going to do? Get a new studio under? They kind of have a couple that they've announced, but we don't know what they're working on. But I'll be surprised if it's anything but a third-person action game.
Yeah, I don't know. They need a. I mean, they kind of have a fighting game in Street Fighter because it's pretty much exclusive to PlayStation, even though they're not in-house. But as far as Sony first party, I mean, they need an RPG, they need a first-person shooter. Yeah. I could even say that they would even benefit from something like a puzzle game.
Yeah,
of some
I was going to say that.
I mean, they had that game, The Witness, that was really well received. I think it was an exclusive. So, there are genres and stuff that they could get into. I mean, the biggest ones are like a Western RPG, a JRPG. It actually is mind-boggling to me that Sony does not have a JRPG team.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because they're from Japan. I get it. Atlas and fucking Square Enix are like the masters of that domain, and they pretty much exclusively release on PlayStation anyway. But
dude, they should scoop up some of that talent, start a studio up, and make an awesome JRPG.
It doesn't even have to be. And the big thing too is that they don't make any indie games anymore. And I don't mean indie in that they're legitimately indie games. I just mean they don't make any of these small scale, sort of
cyber
throw
ninjas.
Shit at the wall kind of games, right? With the exception of that one studio that made Entwined or whatever the fuck.
Oh yeah, stuff like Puppeteer. We just lost that studio, right? Whatever, Japan Studios got blown up.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of that, man, Team Asobi, which is kind of what happened, is all that remains, I think, from Japan Studios. Posted that they're hiring for a new game, which is in development. This usually happens in the gaming industry. We'll see posts like this. They show up, rumors start circulating, but it does appear, based on the description of the posting, that it's going to be a platformer. So while we were talking about all this, they do have Astrobot, which is an untapped game, because we don't have a full-fledged. The only Astrobot game that we have that's full is at the Astrobot Rescue Mission on VR, and that game's fantastic. You could be argued that the Astrobot game that comes with the PS5 is a full game, but it was made to show off the system. I want an actual game. I don't know. I guess we have Little Big Planet, but I don't know if that was exclusive either. Was it? Sackboy's Big Adventure, or whatever it was.
Sackboy's Big Adventure was exclusive, but I don't think that Sony made that internally. That's a second-party game.
Right. There you go. So, yeah, Asobi's hiring. It looks like it could be another Astrobot game they might be trying to hire for. But, Jake, we were talking about God of War earlier. Joining the follow-up to the acclaimed Sony IP God of War being delayed to 2022, we can now add Horizon Forbidden West to that list. News comes from Bloomberg. So that's another big game that was supposed to come out this year that's getting pushed back. So I don't even have an opinion about it. I mean, it's not a surprise. It's just what's going on at Sony? I just don't understand. I think they jumped the gun on the PS5 release. They did, even though I forgot to put this in the news blurb, but they've sold 10 million units or something crazy like that already. I don't know what the number is. Might have been more than that, but.
So you said that Horizon and God of War are both delayed?
They're both delayed. Yeah, 2022, when they originally were already previously announced for 2021, I believe.
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know what else has been delayed, though, for 2021 releases that got pushed out. Maybe those are the two big ones, but I think that I wouldn't be surprised if we see something else. I mean, we've had some delays, but they stayed within the year. But
literally nobody thought that God of War was coming out this year.
Right.
But, I mean, Horizon was kind of a 50-50. And, I mean, given that they just showed gameplay footage of that game
a lot of
a few weeks ago or whatever, I'm not surprised that game is delayed, but it's kind of a bummer because what the fuck do they have in the fall now?
Nothing that I know of. Nothing that's come into mind.
Right. So,
but then again, I haven't really had my nose right in video games for the last couple months. I mean, I've been looking at the news points and stuff for the show, but I mean, there could be something coming out this fall that might get us excited, but another thing that's kind of getting me excited, Jake, is there's going to be a large PS5 firmware patch rolling out, and it will allow us. Here are the things it's going to allow, among other things, things that I took notes on. It will allow us to use the M2 SSD expansion slot now, as Sony promised it would be coming. So they're gonna pull the lock off that and let us use that for expanding our SSD. The patch will also allow users to enable 3D audio through TV speakers, which is kind of strange. They're updating indicators to allow users know which version of the game is installed. And so that's going to be more obvious when you're playing a game that has a PS4 version and a PS5 version. It's going to be very clear now what version you have on your hard drive. And then the huge addition is that they are making updates to the way trophies are working. And I don't care so much about tracking, but they're going to allow you to track 5 trophies now for whatever game you're invested in. But they also, something you and I have wanted, Jake, they're rolling out vertical trophy lists instead of the horizontal lists. They've heard us. They're going to go up and down now, so we'll be able to easier track our trophies.
That's good, because the trophy list right now
it's atrocious.
To look
it's
at.
awful. So this new firmware update is going to be changing that. So that's good news. Do you have any comment on any of those updates?
I don't think so. I mean, that stuff is all good. Like, it's good that we're getting it all, so I'm happy about that. The trophy tracking thing is kind of interesting. I don't know if I would use it or not. It's one of those features that I would probably use if I don't forget that it exists, which I probably will immediately forget that it exists.
Yeah, it's just
because they don't like Sony has a bad habit of putting features in that are really useful and then not telling anybody that they exist.
Yeah,
and not making them obvious. So you are like, man, I wish the fucking PlayStation did this, and then some rando on the internet's like, actually, it does do that.
You got to do this, that, this, and this thing.
You know, you go like 17 menus deep into the freaking settings, and oh, now I can do it. It's like, okay, well, that's just like poor UI design.
And then it won't save that setting, and every time you restart, you know, you got to go back in and re-trigger it, or else it won't. Yeah. All right. So real quick, August PlayStation Plus games, because we're now in August. They've been announced. We're getting Hunter's Arena Legends on PS5, Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville on PS4, and Tennis World Tour 2 on PS4. None of these I give any rat's ass about. They might be okay. Plants vs. Zombies might be okay. I don't know. I know it has had quite a bit of a fan base. But, I mean, I can play a tennis game every once in a while, and if I'm being honest, I'm not even sure what Hunter's Arena Legends is. It sounds like a multiplayer game or some shit.
Oh, yeah, this is, I think, that game that they announced, and this is one of those games they announced in that State of Play they did recently that looked just like super generic.
Yeah.
Some generic, like, arena fighter fucking game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know that this is. Yeah, this is like a MOBA.
So it's kind of a rough month for PS Plus games, but I'm excited to see what they offer as we get closer to Halloween. Usually they have deals on scary games and stuff.
So these are PS Plus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just hate multiplayer games. I don't know that I'd actually play it, but I'm curious if there's any kind of single player component to Hunter's Arena. I mean, I'm honestly willing to try anything. But like you did say, tennis games are kind of, I used to play tennis all the time back in the day. You know, I don't remember specifically which tennis game it was, but there was a tennis game I used to play all the time. And obviously back in I used to play Mario Tennis on Super Nintendo.
Tennis can
and
be
all that
fun.
kind of stuff. So
yeah.
It can be really fun. Yeah.
So we'll see. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is patched now to run on the PS5 at 4K and 60 frames per second. And this is awesome because I really like the Tomb Raider game. So it might give me a reason to go back into it. Have it. I'll just have to reinstall it and get the patch. EA Play happened, Jake, while we were gone. Some of the more interesting announcements include a Dead Space remake for PS5. Again, the Hollywood Syndrome. We're getting another game, but it's not like an expansion of the story. It's not anything new. It's not a spin-off. It's just a remake of Dead Space, I guess. Grid Legends was announced. Battlefield 2042 is getting what they're calling a portal mode, which essentially permits players to modify and chop up rules and stuff from earlier game maps and send them out on a community list to play them. So you can build your own essential multiplayer maps in Battlefield now, it looks like.
Yeah, so they're doing like that thing that has been in Halo forever,
And people are going to go
ballistic
ballistic over this. This is
build your own shit.
Yeah, people are going to be so
It's
excited.
cool. Yeah, it's really neat. Dude, have you never played Dead Space?
No. So, I'll wait.
Dude, wait for the remake, but I'm not even fucking with you. The first Dead Space is literally one of the greatest survival horror games ever made.
Dude, you're fucking with
It
me.
is so good. Yeah. I'm not even kidding. I loved it.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah. It looks good. I still haven't even I haven't taken the plunge into Mass Effect. That came out. You know, the trilogy.
Oh, dude, you got to play that too.
I know.
I mean, you could probably skip the first one. I mean, you could play it if you want to, but where it really gets legit is the second one.
You can play it if you want to. You can play Mass Effect Part 1. That's the Men at Work song.
That's not Men at Work.
Oh yeah,
that's a.
It's not Men at Work.
Is that Culture Club?
You can dance if you want to.
Safety Dance.
You can dance if you want to. I thought it was Men at Work.
No.
What song did Men
Without
Work
Hats? I'm sorry. Men Without Hats. That song is so funny.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Men Without Hats did Safety Dance.
That was no. What did Men at Work sing?
Men at Work did I come from the land down under.
Yeah. All right, yeah.
And they did that song that Overkill song.
Yeah.
That Keith recently texted us about.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. All right, so we're almost through the news here. If you own a PS5, Jake and you do, and I do, and I know our listeners have them, you can sign up for 6 free months of Apple TV using the Apple TV app on your PlayStation 5. This is actually kind of cool. But I'm not sure what's even on Apple TV that interests me in watching. After the 6 months are up, you have to cancel. You're going to be charged. But 6 months free of Apple TV actually sounds like it might be interesting. They have that one show about the game developing company, and it's kind of like The Office. It's like a sitcom. It's supposed to be funny. I forget what it's called, but that's on Apple TV.
Don't know much about I don't know much about Apple TV's offerings, but one of the things that I do know is that they exclusively have the that documentary Long Way Up, which is, have you ever heard of the one of the most famous motorcycle documentaries is called Long Way Around. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So it's about I don't know if you knew this, but you know who Ewan McGregor is, right?
Yeah.
He is hardcore into motorcycling.
Okay.
Like hardcore. Him and Charlie Borman, his friend, in Long Way Around, this is like right after they filmed the prequels for Star Wars. They planned a trip where they literally rode their motorcycles around the world, and they documented the whole thing.
That's awesome.
And it's this really like crazy documentary. They did another one called Long Way Down, which is a documentary about them doing I think a trip through Africa or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the most recent one they just did is called Long Way Up, and it's them starting, I think they're starting at the southern point of South America and going all the way up through South America into the United States. But they're doing the whole thing on those new electric Harleys.
Oh, really?
The live wires.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so now most of the listeners don't give two shits about this, but I'm super into motorcycles, and I know you have an affinity too. It's just something that I'm interested. I've wanted to watch, but I don't have Apple TV, so I'm excited to be able to watch it. Assuming that I
did you do this? Did you do this yet for the Apple subscription? Did you hear me?
Did I sign up? Did I sign up for it? No, I haven't done it yet. I just saw this like yesterday or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And- or maybe it was a little bit before that, but I completely forgot about it. So you just brought it up. So I'm going to do it probably after we get off the podcast.
Show I was talking about is called Mythic Quest. It's HBO's little synopsis real quick. Silicon Valley made a comedy out of the creation of tech startups. Mythic Quest does something similar. Instead of an internet app company, the show is about the workings of a video game developer. Specifically, it centers on the creator of an MMO game and his team members that have to deal with his sometimes outrageous ideas and requests. The co-creator of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia also co-created the show and stars as its lead character, Ian Grimm, who sometimes believes his job is to create worlds. So it actually looks kind of funny. If you're into video games. And then the number one, I'm on a list here, the number one best Apple TV show it says you should watch is called For All Mankind. So if anyone gets that, maybe check those ones out. And the one you said, are all those shows on there with Hugh McGregor?
I believe so. I think all three of them are. So The Long Way Around, Long Way Down, and Long Way Up. They're like three sort of documentary miniseries.
So they're episodic. That's kind of cool. We'll have to check that out.
Yeah. So if you like motorcycles, I think you'd be into them.
Yeah. I wonder if Norman Reedus' thing is on there too. He had a motorcycle show. I forget what it was called. But it looked really cool. Like he would just rip around and like hang out with people and go to. It's almost like an Anthony Bourdain tribute thing, except he's on a motorcycle. Like Bourdain.
Who did it?
Norman Reedus, the guy from Walking Dead and Boondock Saints.
Oh, that's cool.
He had a show where he would just rip around on motorcycles and go to like cool little spots in cities, and they would just bring a film crew, and he'd like meet someone famous, and they'd go ride together, and like they'd go to like bars and like different places to eat, and like I was like, oh man, this looks so awesome. If you could just make a TV show out of doing that, that'd be so fun.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. I mean,
it's called Ride. It's called Ride. Go ahead.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Another actor that's super into motorcycles is Keanu Reeves. He actually has his own motorcycle company called Arch, which is
bikes are $1
really
million
cool.
a piece.
Yeah, they're super expensive, but they're really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't have to talk about motorcycles anymore.
I think our listeners appreciate it maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Apparently, you can. I don't know where you can watch Ride on. Prime Video, I guess, has the first season, so I might look into that. But all right, so moving forward, Activision Blizzard is in some very hot water, facing a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment, discrimination, frat boy conduct. We don't need to get too far into this, but it just sucks the more stories like this that kind of surface. You know what I mean? We know Activision Blizzard is a really big company, and they pretty much print money, so it doesn't give them an excuse. But I feel like it creates a more I feel like the petri dish is there, right, for more things to happen, bad things to happen. When you have the company with I don't know how many employees they have, with all these different employees, probably working all over the place. By no means am I justifying any of the things that are alleged, but I mean, like, it's just kind of math, like where you have more people and more money, it starts to get to people's heads, and then they start, you're going to get this stuff, especially if it started off as like a smaller game company and they haven't hired and integrated, and developed as a bigger company in the way that they need to kind of control chaos. So it sounds like things are really pretty bad based on what I've heard. But anything on that, Jake?
Yeah, I guess like the state of California is suing them, and it's like they did like a 2-year study against Activision Blizzard, and they came up with clearly what they think is enough damning evidence to go through with the lawsuit against them. And I think Activision has come out and sort of with their own statement, they kind of said that, hey, we're going to sort of fight this. But, I mean, you have to imagine, I mean, just based on the things that have kind of leaked out and stuff, you have to imagine that some of this shit is happening.
Where there's smoke, there's usually fire. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Where it really is kind of sort of, I don't want to say interesting, but like where it's really important to figure out is whether or not it's a systemic problem. is the company condoning this? And if the company is condoning it, then the state of California definitely has a case on their hands.
Right.
But if these things are if like you said, it's like, oh, this company is just really big, and as such, these things tend to happen, especially when, in the games industry, where most or a lot of, I would say more than other industries, a good portion of the people in it are, socially, let's just say socially awkward.
You're not giving
right?
anyone a pass either by saying that. It's just
no. We're just saying that, like, let's say that all of these things are just sort of by happenstance, but when they happen, there's evidence that the company dealt with it directly, and those parties were reprimanded or fired or whatever. That's a different story. But if it comes out that, oh, Activision knew this stuff was happening, they weren't doing anything about it, or they were doing very little about it, their climate, their culture is actively sort of allowing this stuff to happen,
kind of condoning
or
it,
maybe encouraging it or condoning it, then yeah, that's a real big problem, and it should definitely be dealt with. Yeah. Now, I know one of the things that Activision has discussed is possibly even just leaving the state of California, because which would be huge, because they bring in
too.
Well, I mean,
is that like their counter threat? Like, if you're going to sue us, we're just going to leave and you're going to miss out on all this tax money?
Well, the thing is that I think that Activision is sort of, again, I have to say that I believe, like you said, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's probably shit going on. It needs to be addressed. But I think that this department within California that is pursuing this lawsuit has a reputation of being very sort of like aggressive towards the games industry and trying to basically ferret out all of this stuff, whether that's good or bad. I'm not saying I know that sounds like that's a negative way of saying it, but so it could be that Activision is basically just saying, like, look, we're gonna leave, take our billions and billions of dollars with us. You're gonna lose all of our tax money, and we're gonna set a precedent for all of the other tech companies in California that are also basically the target of these types of lawsuits, or are becoming the target of these types of lawsuits. Right. And it's mainly the games industry at the moment. Obviously, there have been huge uncoverings in other industries recently, notably the film industry with the Harvey Weinstein or whatever the fuck his name was. I mean, that's some pretty egregious shit. And obviously he's in some penthouse jail cell right now, quote unquote, serving his time for it. But, it's just, I don't want to really, I'm not really going to throw my weight one way or the other on this until it is either settled or it goes to court and we find out actually what is going on, because it could very well be, because based on the actual legal document that was come out about this lawsuit, that the legal document that the state of California filed about it, a lot of their accusations are relatively vague. And so whether or not they actually have, I mean, I have to assume they have more evidence that they just didn't put in this document. But other than maybe one, or it seems like basically the biggest thing they were shining their light on is like the discrimination against women, not the sexual harassment shit, which that stuff is definitely probably happening, but like women not making as much money as men, and like being passed over for promotions. And I think they have a couple of specific examples where women were passed over for promotions because of quote unquote frat boy culture or whatever. And I think that is something I think that's what is driving this lawsuit. But I think the sexual misconduct is the splashier headline. And so that is what people that are, in news sites and aggregators and stuff, that's what they're sort of, throwing in the front, even though it seems like based on their legal document, the sexual misconduct is the offense that they have they have less sort of evidence and shit on. Now I'm not an expert. I can't read legalese all that well, so I don't really know for a fact. Please take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Yeah. And again, this shit is probably happening, but what they have to prove is whether or not Activision is actually condoning it. Because when you got a company that big and with people of that type, and I'm not really condoning this at all, but I'm not surprised.
Well, like I said, the Petri dish has all the ingredients in there to have. Well, and even
issues. let's just say that everyone is socially normal, right? Nobody has awkwardness or anything like that. It's a male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
So when you have an office that's got 500 employees in it, 450 of them are men. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's right, but it's not necessarily surprising that these things happen.
Yeah. What
is important is whether or not the company is trying to address it and change the culture surrounding it so that it happens less in the future.
Right. They got to, instead of being made an example of, they need to make the example, set the bar, set the example, say, listen, this is what we've done to counter, to mitigate these things from happening. Hopefully there's paper trails. Hopefully there's John over in the art department, made an unnecessary comment or something about Sally's dress or made her feel uncomfortable. She reports it up the ladder, and hopefully John was reprimanded for it. But if this gets reported up the ladder and Activision is like, oh, that's just John, that's just the way that he is, right? Then there's a problem. Especially if this kind of stuff happens time and time and time again. It's the company's responsibility from the HR point of view and from the management point of view to address all these things when they come up and when they, when they're brought up to management. Management's not dealing with it correctly, then it is a problem. And I guess you're right. That's what they're going to have to show. Another thing that's interesting too is it's going to be difficult. I work in a professional setting without saying too much about where I work. But the thing that's interesting is we have a system for hiring, right? Or when we hire people for our office and for work, there's a interview panel. There's a panel of usually 3 people. Usually there's a minority and a man and a woman on the panel. It's mandatory to try to keep these interviews as equitable as possible, right? And, the applicants, come in and everybody's asked the exact same questions to keep it completely fair. And then, all the panelists write down the responses individually that they hear the applicant give. And then when the interview is over, the panelists talk amongst one another, and then they rate individually. They rate how they see fit that person, and then it's all documented. And the way that we rate people is based on the actual interview and the information that we have, right? So usually when you're hiring somebody, you should be able to back up why you hired somebody over another person, right? And the reason we do it the way we do it is to avoid all this stuff. And so, I mean, it's going to be difficult to prove one way or the other why someone was hired over another person, right? You're going to have to be like, because ultimately, couldn't they just say, well, you fucked the interview up? The interview was fucking terrible, and there's no record of it. And it's like, hey, we did an interview, and you were a shit show. Like, you came, you weren't dressed professionally. You did this, you did that. How's someone going to prove, if you're a woman, to say that's not what happened? Like, you can't prove that unless there's documentation of it. So those allegations are really hard to prove. If Bob's a guy, and we'll use Sally again. Sally's a woman. They're both interviewing for the same position. Bob gets the job 9 times out of 10 over the woman. The company is just going to say they're better equipped for the job. And now, what if the woman is like, that's not true? How do you fight that as a woman? Like, how do you prove that you're more equipped for a job? Because isn't that technically up to the employer? It gets real tricky, right? So
I guess there are ways. Yeah, it's hard to prove, and there are ways that you can kind of go about it. That where you could take like what the job entails, and
past
you can kind of look at the credentials of both people, right, and kind of do an objective sort of interview as part of the trial. But like, I think where they're making more headway is in the assessment of, or in the giving of promotions, right? Where they can directly show like the performance of this employee versus this employee, and yet like the less performing one is the one that got the promotion, even though this other one did way better. And now obviously there are deeper sort of kind of facets.
There's so many layers of the onion
that they did, right? And that's why these kinds of lawsuits have, multiple like huge high paying attorneys that like do all this digging, and they have all their freaking teams that go and they do all this research, and these trials will last probably weeks, so I don't know. I guess where I'll kind of leave it off is that I think that clearly something has historically happened.
Has to have.
At Activision Blizzard. And I think that what I am curious about is whether or not it has been addressed internally. And if it hasn't been addressed internally, then it needs to be taken care of.
Certainly.
So hopefully something comes out of it.
And one way or the other. Yeah. And then I'll cap it off, which is shitty that Activision Blizzard's response is we're just going to move out of the state. Because clearly it seems like there's an issue. And it's like, we're just going to take our big dick swinging money, and we're not going to give it to the state anymore if you're going to keep looking into us. And that is almost condoning the shit.
That's not what they said, right? They basically were just like, look, we're going to defend this.
Right.
But I think that they just kind of hinted at the fact that there's a non-zero possibility that if they were going to continue to be sort of
picked on,
because keep in mind, this is coming from,
yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it.
Great white man in rural Pennsylvania, right? There is an observed culture. I'm not saying that this is true or not, but there is an observed culture within the state of California that sometimes a certain amount of social justice, reform, civil rights, all that stuff is very, very important. We need to have it to push society forward. But there is a reputation in California that they take it to the next level. And so if these companies feel like they're being persecuted just to meet some kind of, because the other thing too is that the people that are making these claims and that are filing these lawsuits against the company of Activision, they're not elected officials. They're just people with jobs in this department. So it's not like the attorney general is doing this or anything like that. As far as I understand, again, not an expert. But
so far from it, both of us, but it is.
I don't know anything about, I literally click every end user license agreement. I say agree without even reading it. So I don't even fucking know what I'm agreeing to. I probably sold my soul a million times over on accident. But, I would say that I'm going to give the prosecutor the reasonable doubt. I mean, they're the ones bringing the case. They did the 2-year study. They think they have there's been enough kind of smoke that we should really sort of pay attention to this. But at the same time, I can understand if a company like Activision has a place of defense, they feel like they're in a defensible position. And they feel like they're being unfairly persecuted, and it's damaging the reputation and all this kind of stuff, especially with the way that sexual harassment has been a big thing within the industry recently. And they feel like they're sort of the one in the frying pan right now. So, I think that their response, even though it wasn't exactly what you said, it was still very sort of lash outy, and probably not the best decision from a PR perspective. So I don't know. Again, I want to follow this.
This is why we have the court system.
What's important to me is that progress is being made, and that if people are being prosecuted or being objectified or harassed or unfairly treated within the workplace, passed over for promotions, blah, 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 all that stuff needs to be fixed.
Yeah, for sure.
We can't have, our industry cannot have that type of shit in it. I mean, and
it just needs to be weeded out when it's there and addressed, right?
Yeah, and it just, maybe this is just the beginning, right? Or maybe this is just the industry reaching a certain point of maturity where once an industry gets so large, right? Gaming is now huge. It's billions and billions and billions and billions.
More than the movie
right?
industry,
so
yeah.
Once it got so big, this type of sort of, we'll call it a collapse. It's not a collapse, but it's like this sort of weeding out of issues is bound to happen, because up until this point, remember, a lot of these big companies like Activision, for example, and I have to give a shout out to the Sacred Symbols podcast, because they did a deep dive into this whole thing. And one of the things that they mentioned, which I thought was very interesting, is that most of these big game companies are still led by the people that found them 40 years ago. Bobby Kotick, who's the guy in power at Activision, he founded the company like 40 fucking years ago.
There were like 12 people in the company when he started it, maybe.
Yeah, so like he's probably still operating under like a certain culture that existed when he was still like a startup. You know what I mean? And not this huge multinational conglomerate.
Like, hey, let's just talk it out. Why don't you guys hug it out and shake hands? It's water under the table. Let's not worry about this. Like, who knows?
Yeah,
who
or
knows?
just like, like, so I'm not saying that, because in other industries, like in the finance sector and stuff, like you don't have a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar business that's there for 40 years.
No, that's
it's very
wild.
rare. Usually the board turns over the CEO whenever there's downturns in the business and all this kind of crap. I mean, look at a company like GE. It happens all the time. So gaming is very interesting in that it is, for as big as it is, it's still trying to hang on to this like close-knit, small, like exclusive community in terms of the in crowd. And I think that that's just one of these things that needs to change. And once all of that becomes more public, it becomes more, I hate to say more corporate, but like more
structured,
and more agnostically kind of run, right? Where everything is sort of just run based on how business should be run and how the culture should be adapted, and how things that, civil rights and all this stuff, how it should work. And it gets away less, it's less a part of like the personality side of it. It might sterilize the business a little bit, which is a bummer, but at the same time, it's going to increase the health of the employees and, make sure everybody has a fair shake and all this kind of stuff.
Make sure it's more equitable and people being treated fairly.
I don't know. I mean, we don't have to go on forever about it. It's really important topic.
It is. It's a big thing, and I don't know a whole lot about the whole thing. You know, I've done minimal research, so I just wanted to bring it up on the show that it's happening, and you know, Activision Blizzard, they're a huge company. You know, they're huge, so it's relevant to the podcast. And it's probably the last you'll hear about it on our show, unless something crazy happens. New games coming out. Today's August 1st. We're recording tomorrow, Monday the 2nd. And then on the 3rd, Hunter's Arena Legends, PS5, PS4 is coming out. In Sound Mind on PS5. August 5th, we see Dodgeball Academia on PS4. The Falconeer Warrior Edition on PS5. And then August 6th, Zenjin on PS4. So those are the new games coming out this week. And
it's sort of weird that we're getting another Dodgeball game.
Yeah.
Because they just released that Knockout City game, just came out like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
It's pretty weird. Two Dodgeball games in the summer.
The one Dodgeball game that I think is wildly underrated, and I tweeted on our PS This Is Awesome Twitter account, is that it was Super Dodgeball on the NES or something, I think, was the most wildly underrated. I don't know if you ever played that game. It was fantastic. It was.
I don't know. I don't think I ever have. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't know if I've ever played it.
It was equivalent of how mecha like Super Tecmo Bowl was growing up for me. Like, like Super Dodgeball was just like, it was so fantastic. It was so fun. So good. But anyways, yeah, that is weird that you brought up Dodgeball. But yeah, man, I don't have anything else really to add to the show except, new listeners, welcome to the show. And if you've been a repeat listener, apologize for us being kind of in the dark for a while, not having new episodes. But we came with a disclaimer earlier this month, or earlier this summer. Sometime we had a disclaimer saying that we're not going to be able to do it as weekly as we want to, but we are still the thing. So hopefully your iPhone feeds and all that stuff haven't just lapsed, and sometimes they make the user click on it and say, do you want to begin re-downloading these episodes? And then, if that happens, that happens. We lost some listeners. Hopefully we didn't. Hopefully you're still in the wind with us here, and I guess we're just going to keep pushing forward. I can't make any promises when the next episode is going to be. Hopefully it'll be soon, and hopefully I'll have Ratchet and Clank beaten by then, and maybe I'll be playing for the Phillies or another major league team. We'll see. Jake, you got anything for the listeners?
I was just looking up the tennis game that I played when I was a kid. I actually still have it. It is Super Tennis for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I couldn't tell you right now if it's any good or not, but I had fun playing it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know what I'm going to do next on PlayStation. I think I'm going to stick with playing the Ascent for a little while, just because it's hot. I mean, that's a hot game. It's unfortunate that that it's an Xbox game and not a PlayStation game, but it literally just came out like a couple days ago. So it is relevant. I hope that what was I going to say?
I don't know. Hopefully it comes to the PS5 soon, right?
I hope that it comes to the PS5 because I think that people would like it. Now, it could end up being bad at the end. I don't know, but it seems really cool so far. It's kind of overwhelming. Some RPGs can be pretty overwhelming at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's a little overwhelming, but I'm trying to ignore all the way that I feel like the best way to learn that stuff is ignore all this fucking shit and just play the main missions for like the first few hours of the game. And just kind of like you pick up something, you're like, oh, what does this do? And then you go like to that part of the menu, right? And then you just kind of organically learn stuff. Because one of the things that this game does that I kind of hate when games do this is that every single fucking thing you do for the first 2 hours of the game, it brings up a fucking screen that's like
tutorial,
this feature, and there's like a tutorial, and I'm just like, okay. And like I go into there's like a map screen, and then how like a lot of inventories in games, it'll be a bunch of tabs, and one will be like your character, one's the map, one's the fucking inventory, one's a codex, whatever. And you go in there the first time, and every single time you click on one of them, it's like a tutorial screen, and it's just like, okay, I know how to fucking use a map. I know how to use what I mean? So like, but it makes things overwhelming because the older I get, the less patience I have for reading text in games.
Oh, I don't like to read text at all.
I know that sounds really kind of goofy, but like if I get like this menu that comes up and it's like, you know, this freaking gospel on how to use like abilities for my character, I'm just like, just tell me how to turn it on and then I'll just press the button until it works and then figure out what the fuck I'm doing. Like I just don't have the time. I don't have the gaming patience to sit there and read. Like, I'll be honest with you, most of these games anymore, if there's like written stuff, like written diaries and things you can pick up, I very rarely read them all. If they're audio diaries, I will listen to them because I can kind of do that and do other things at the same time. Yeah. But the reading stuff, like especially because like I sit a ways away from my TV.
Well, it's time consuming though to read, right? So like
I read like a 5th grader, so like it takes forever. And
I don't know. Yeah. You have like an hour to play a game for the day, and then the first thing you do is like you pick up a note, and it's like literally 6 paragraphs, and it's like, well, I could sit and read this, and it'll take me 5 minutes. Or 6 minutes, and then I'm gonna walk 2 feet, search a chest, and get another thing that's like another 3 paragraphs. And it's like, or I can just play the goddamn game. I get it, man.
Right.
It's frustrating, but hey, let me leave the listeners with a cool tip here that I found out, and maybe this is really obvious, but it's something that I've been doing, and because it seems like whenever Sony have their sales on their PSN, right, it's just like it's not the greatest storefront, and then like it's always like you got to look through every single game to find the deals. So if there's a game that you want, just add it to your fucking wish list. Because anytime there's a sale, on the top of the PlayStation PSN store, you can go access your wish list and look at all the games you've added. And if it's on sale, it'll show the discounted price next to it. So if you know of games that you want, just add them, and you don't want to pay full price for them yet, you're not sure ready to pull the trigger, just add them to the wish list. And then every week, go in and check and see if there's a discount on it. I've seen a couple good deals on Detached since, and I haven't pulled the trigger, but it was showing up on my wish list as discounted whenever it was listed as part of one of their sales. So that's a great little tidbit on how to manipulate that store to your favor, sorting through all the bullshit. So find the games that you want, add them to your wish list, and then check the wish list frequently and see if any of them are on discount. So
Detached is that PSVR game, right?
Yeah. It was
so funny story. Just real quick before we go, I ordered the dongle for my camera.
Yeah,
they required a signature for it.
Yeah.
Which of course I'm never fucking home. I'm working when they stop in. They're like, oh, 11 a.m. on a Wednesday. You're not there. Okay, well, I'll come back tomorrow. And then they come back tomorrow. So they come back 3 days in a row, and they're like, we're not delivering it to you anymore. It's at our facility, which is an hour and a half away from you. You can come get it. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like waiting for an opportunity where I'm going that way anyways. I finally get an opportunity because I'm going to Cleveland, so I can go past the Youngstown facility and get this shit.
Yeah.
Little fucking $2 dongle. And
free dongle for you.
Yeah. And I call them, and they're like, just to make sure, I call them, and they're like, oh, we don't have it anymore. We send it back to the sender. We returned it to sender. And I'm like, well, guess I'm not playing fucking PSVR on my PS5. I don't give a shit anymore. You made it this hard. I don't care. And it's Sony that did that. Sony required the signature.
I don't understand that because
like,
I didn't have to sign for mine.
It?
Yeah, I didn't have to sign for mine.
And so like, and I had to sign for my PS4 when I bought it through Sony. So I don't know how you didn't have to sign for yours. It's so weird. I didn't
sign for it.
But
that sucks because the VR works so well on the PS5. It's smooth as butter. It looks better.
Well, I was thinking, well, maybe I'll just buy the PS5 camera.
Well, does that work?
Why else would you have a camera for PS5? Seriously, why else would you have?
I don't know if that would.
So
I don't know if
it doesn't work for PSVR, then I guess I'm just not playing PSVR on my PS5 because I'll just sell my VR because I don't really need it. I'm not playing it on my PS4 anymore because my PS4 is in a box. So
just look it up. Look it up before you try to do that.
Yeah.
But anyways, all right. Well, hey, unfortunately, again, no music to close out the show. We are in need of some submissions. So don't forget, if you want to have your original music featured on the show, send an MP3 to our email account, pssisawesome@gmail.com, along with your band name and the title of the song, and we'll notify you when it goes live. We had a lot of music for a while, and that was because I was actively like putting out posts like on my social media, just be like, hey, I know all y'all are in bands, send me some music. And then I had just a ton of tracks emailed, but I'm kind of beyond the point of taking the extra measure at this point. If you guys want to put something out, if you guys know musicians, you guys know anybody who's making music, and you want music at the end of your podcast, your favorite podcast, because this is awesome, then put it out into social media channels. Let them know we're looking for music to put on at the end of our show to showcase. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in, guys and girls. We appreciate you all. And we're going to come back here hopefully sooner than we did this last time for another episode. But this has been episode 185 of PS is Awesome, a PlayStation podcast. Thank you again. And like Ultra Wings, Uncharted, and Undertale. P.S.
P.S.
This is awesome.
This is awesome.